Diseases, which is the institute I direct sponsored, called the Adaptive Co-Virus Disease Treatment Trial, or ACCT1, was started in February 21st.
All right, this is a little bit delayed. There's Dr. Fauci. They're in the Oval Office.
And it was a randomized placebo-controlled trial comparing the Gilead drug remdesivir with a placebo. It was highly powered with about 1,090 plus individuals. So it is the first truly high-powered randomized placebo-controlled trial. It was an international trial involving multiple sites, not only in the United States, but in various countries throughout the world, including Germany, Denmark, Spain, Greece, the UK, etc. The primary endpoint was the time to recovery, namely the ability to be discharged. When you have a study like this, we have a data and safety monitoring board which looks at the data. And they are independent, so there's no prejudice on the part of the investigators because they're doing the trial or the drug is from a certain company. The Data and Safety Monitoring Board on Monday afternoon contacted me on April 27th, first on Friday, the week before, and then again on April 27th, and notified the study team, namely the multiple investigators who are doing the study throughout the world, that the data shows that remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. This is really quite important for a number of reasons, and I'll give you the data. It's highly significant. If you look at the time to recovery being shorter in the remdesivir arm, it was 11 days compared to 15 days. And that's a p-value for the scientists who are listening of 0.001. So that's something that, although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it is a very important proof of concept, because what it is proven is that a drug can block this virus. And I'll give you an example in a moment of why we think, looking forward, this is very optimistic.
And you should be buying Gilead stock.
The mortality rate trended towards being better in the sense of less deaths in the remdesivir group. 8% versus 11% in the placebo group. It has not yet reached statistical significance, but the data needs to be further analyzed. The reason why we're making the announcement now is something that I believe people don't fully appreciate. Whenever you have clear-cut evidence that a drug works, you have an ethical obligation to immediately let the people who are in the placebo group know so that they could have access. And all of the other trials that are taking place.
Louisiana governor is a Democrat.
So we would have normally waited several days until the data gets further, dot the I and cross the T. But the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change. So when I was looking at this data with our team the other night, it was reminiscent of 34 years ago in 1986.
Gilead is already up 8%.
For drugs for HIV.
That's who makes the remdesivir.
And there was a lot of anecdotal reports about things that maybe did work, maybe not.
This is really fantastic news.
Drugs. And we did the first
Gilead
randomized
and for
placebo-controlled trial with AZT, which turned out to give an effect that was modest. But that was not the end game, because building on that every year after, we did better and better. We had better drugs of the same type, and we had drugs against different targets. This drug happens to be blocking an enzyme that the virus uses, and that's an RNA polymerase. But there are a lot of other enzymes that the virus uses that are now going to be targets for this. This will be the standard of care. And in fact, when we look at the other trials we're doing, we were going to do trial with another antiviral. Actually, it isn't an antiviral, it's an anti-inflammatory, a monoclonal antibody. We're going to now compare the combination of remdesivir with this. So as drugs come in, we're going to see if we could add on that. So bottom line, you're going to be hearing more details about this. This will be submitted to a peer-reviewed journal and will be peer-reviewed appropriately. But we think it's really opening the door to the fact that we now have the capability of treating, and I can guarantee you, as more people, more companies, more investigators get involved, it's going to get better and better. So I'll stop there, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Fauci, does any of this data, does that make you more comfortable?
Why don't you go first, and then you go?
Does any of this data change the timeline and the development of a vaccination?
No, this has nothing to do with vaccines. This is treatment for people who are already infected. Vaccines is to prevent infection in those who are at risk.
Do you have new data on vaccines?
No, nothing more than that. What I continue at the press conferences that we have regularly, keep you up to date, that everything is on track with the phase 1 study. We're in the third part of it. We're going to go into phase 2 in the summer, but nothing has changed than anything I've said when we had press conferences.
Tony, they're writing a lot about Oxford. We know Johnson & Johnson is well
There's
advanced.
another candidate, another one of several candidates that are moving along, because we're going to have a lot of shots on goal when it comes to vaccines.
Yes,
That's
good.
key.
That's great. Yeah, please, go ahead.
How does this news influence your thought process on states reopening their governments? Do you think people should be more comfortable knowing that there is a drug that is proven effective?
Well, I think it's a beginning. I thought Tony explained it really well. It's a beginning. It means you build on it.
I think that Tony explained it really well, and I misunderstood it perfectly.
But certainly it's a positive. It's a very positive event from that standpoint. And we're going to be very careful as we open. A lot of people, a lot of governors are opening. I know you're very advanced. You're going to be very advanced in getting it going. But
That's John Bell
we're doing
Edwards,
it very
Louisiana.
carefully. We've learned a lot over the last couple of months. And if there's a fire, we're going to put it out. If there's a little ember burning, we're going to put it out. We're going to put it out very quickly. And
You know, like the way we
I
put
think
out
we've
the
learned
1
how to
million
do that.
embers.
There's been some areas that have really started up, and we put it out very quickly. So we've learned a lot. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, the Stop the Spread guidelines expire tomorrow. Do you intend to extend those?
Well, I'll let Mike. Do you want to explain what we're doing on that?
I think, Mr. President, we've issued the guidelines. Now, it was actually 45 days ago. First 15 and then 30 days to slow the spread. Frankly, every state in America
The president's
has
guidelines
embraced
did
those
nothing to slow
guidelines
the
at a
spread.
minimum,
They
or
literally said,
even
if
done
you're
more.
sick, stay home.
Now our
And we
focus
know
is working
better than
with
that now.
states,
If your kids are sick, don't send them to the schools
Governor John
that are
Bell Edwards,
closed. It was the
unveiled
governors
plans to open up their states
made this
again.
happen.
And the new guidance that we've
Even
issued
with
is
that, we
guidance
have
for
a
how they
million
can do that
cases
safely
without
and
proper testing.
responsibly. And so the not only the gating criteria for when we believe it's appropriate for states to enter phase 1 are included, but also the very specific guidelines for when states open and how they can open in, as the president said, in a safe and responsible way are included in the president's guidelines for Open Up America again.
So the current guidelines then will not be extended?
The current guidelines, I think you can say, are very much incorporated in the guidance that we're giving states to open up America again, but maybe, Mr. President,
And I think
Dr.
a way
Burks.
of saying it, they'll be fading out because now the governors are doing it. I've had many calls from governors, Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and many governors, Tennessee, Arkansas. We're speaking to a lot of different people, and they're explaining what they're doing, and I am very much in favor of what they're doing. They're getting it going. And we're
So Trump's going
opening our
to
country
fade out
again. Do you want to explain
the
that,
social
please?
distancing
Yeah, I
rules.
think you could see from California, they made slow the spread the phase 1 of their 4 phases. So
They actually
every
had
governor
rules.
is adapting both currently where we are
'Cause the
and
federal
moving
government
forward
has
of how to
zero
move through
leadership.
phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So if a governor feels like they haven't
Wait,
met
have we
the
seen that
gating
scarf before?
criteria,
I think-
some of
I
them
think
have
Dr.
made that
Scarf is
their
on
own
repeat.
first phase 1,
I think
and
we've
some
seen
of
that
them
one
made
before.
it phase 0. So we've been very encouraged to see how the federal guidelines have helped informed, or at least provide a framework for governors in moving forward
framework.
all the way through
federal
from
guidelines are
what they
nothing.
now call either phase
You probably
0
got the
all the way
postcard.
through phase 3.
And Ron DeSantis, as you know, governor of Florida, was here yesterday, and he gave, I thought, a really good presentation of how he's doing it, what he's doing, how he's opening. You might have seen it.
Yeah, Ron
And he did
DeSantis
a
lied
very good
yesterday
job.
about
I
people
thought,
being quarantined
really
coming
good.
in from
Mr. President,
Wuhan.
I would say that if
Never
you look
happened.
at the plan that you had put out for 30 days to stop the spread, the mitigation measures that you promoted in that plan are carried forward in the
Right.
guidelines for reopening. And so it's sort of a seamless way to do it by keeping those mitigation measures in place that you need to as you reopen, especially for the vulnerable population. So it's really, I would agree with the Vice President that it is carried forward, not just theoretically, but expressly in the document that you gave us. And I
Thank you for mentioning the vulnerable people, because we've made it clear from over the last 8 weeks that there was certain risk groups that were particularly vulnerable to serious disease. That has held up. We see in most of the reports about 95 to 96%
Oh, thank you, Melissa.
of the individuals with serious disease and
Yeah, she's
hospitalizations are still
re-scarfing.
in those
Yes.
groups. I think in a way that's reassuring.
Dr. Scarf is
but it also
re-scarfing.
should be a message to all of our vulnerable populations, as we have said for the last 8 weeks in phase 1 and in phase 2, as well as in slow the spread. We've been very clear about them continuing to shelter and those families protecting them from becoming infected.
Mr. President, what are you hoping to learn about China and the World Health Organization with this investigation you've commissioned with the intelligence agency?
Right, it's coming in, and I'm getting pieces already, and we're not happy about it, and we are by far the largest contributor to WHO, World Health, and they misled us. I don't know.
They did not.
They must have known more than they knew.
All of the quotes you hear about the WHO from the
other people knew
right
that
side,
weren't even involved.
from the right
We
wing,
knew
that's
things that
it's
they
all
didn't
false.
know, and either they didn't know or they didn't tell us, or right now they're
You have to read
they're
them
literally
carefully.
a pipe organ for China. That's the way I view it. So we're
Literally
seeing
a
and we're
pipe
looking
organ
and we're
for
watching.
literally a pipe organ.
And
He doesn't understand
again,
what
we
literally
give
means.
$500 million. We have over the years from 400 to 500 for a long time, for many years. And China is giving $38 million. And yet they seem to work for China. And they should have been in there early. They should have known what was going on.
I don't know. I'm behind
And
the
they should have been
TV
able
feed,
to stop
DJ,
it.
so
If
I don't
we
know.
talk about stopping the spread or stopping the embers, that could have been stopped there. And then why did China allow planes to fly out, but not into China, but they allow planes to come out? And planes are coming out of Wuhan, and they're coming out, they're going all over the world. They're going to Italy, very, very big time to Italy.
Very big
But
time.
they're going all over the world, but they're not going into China. What was that all about? So we had
Planes
you're
flying
here.
from
We're
Wuhan
coming
into
up
other
with
sections of China.
Very distinct recommendation, but we're not happy with it. We're not happy
The Chinese
with it.
government shut down the Wuhan
Even
airports.
today, I've heard some statements that are very positive. There's nothing positive about what happened in China having to do with this subject. Nothing positive at all.
Well, they
And I
locked down
finished
the city and
a number of months ago
quelled the
with a
virus.
trade deal, and you would have thought it would have been like somebody would have said, hey, they could have stopped that at the source. They didn't have to let airplanes fly out and loads of people come out. And we're lucky, as Tony said, we're lucky that we stopped it in January, flowing into our country from China.
Did not.
Outside
February
of our citizens.
2nd,
You know, people
and-
now say, oh, well, you shouldn't have let our citizens back in.
Well, we should have, but they should have been quarantined.
Let's forget about that one. We're lucky we...
The President of the United States.
Oh, they
talking
did
in
cut
the Oval
away.
Office
Crap.
with
Okay, hold on,
reporters.
folks. I'm
One
going
of
to
the most
find the
interesting
Fox
parts of
feed.
the tape we
Fox
just watched
covers
was
the whole
Dr.
thing.
Anthony Fauci giving a detailed presentation. of what
Give me a
he
second
says.
here.
Still
Give me a second. It's coming. It's coming. Let's go to outnumbered. See if we can find out where it was.
Let's forget about that one.
Holy shit, I'm
We're
good.
lucky
Okay, here we go.
Stopped in January. A lot of people, long after that date, as you know, thought that the measure that I took was much too strong. John Bell, we're lucky we stopped it then. You know, we put a
Didn't stop
border,
it.
we put a
I
ban
mean,
on people
there's
coming in from China.
a million facts I can show you that prove that you didn't.
We'll have a recommendation pretty soon, but we are not happy with the World Health Organization.
Just to
Thank you,
clarify,
Kathleen.
a recommendation on what? On the World Health Organization or a recommendation on China? What do you
On
mean?
World Health with China to follow.
Mr. President, can I ask a question of Dr. Fauci? There
Yes,
was also
please.
a study out of China of remdesivir that came out today that didn't find a significant statistical significance with the treatment. I'm wondering if you saw that
Uh-oh,
in the Lancet
there goes the
study
stock.
and why that.
Yeah, it's an underpowered study, and it's not the kind of study where, that's the reason why I was very explicit in saying this is a randomized controlled, placebo-controlled trial that's powered to the tune of over 1,000 in hospitalized patients. And the endpoint was a clear endpoint, the time that you essentially are discharged, and the secondary endpoint to death. So even though, I mean, I don't like to poo-poo other studies, but that's not an adequate study, and everybody in the field feels that.
Mr. President, what can you do to help businesses with liability issues as workers come back? in states that have opened up?
Well, as you know, we just worked with the meat processors, and if you think about it, a form of delivery, we have tremendous product. We have ample supply, but there was a bottleneck caused by this whole pandemic, and it was potentially pretty serious. And I just got off the phone with the biggest in the world. I mean, the biggest distributors there are, and the big companies that you've been reading about. They are so thrilled. They're so happy. They're all gung-ho, and we solved their problems. We unblocked some of the bottlenecks, and I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard. I spoke to him about 2 hours ago, signed something very important last night in terms of Defense Production Act. And it was very important. They were so happy. They're like, it's like a new business for them. They were
all the
being very
employees going back
treated,
to the factories,
very unfairly treated,
where thousands of people are infected.
The farmers are very happy, and the ranchers, and the
sick people
companies
are so
that we're
happy.
talking about. You know the ones I'm talking about, because they've all become very well known. They were well known anyway. They're big companies, but they're now being treated fairly. They're thrilled, and that whole bottleneck is broken up.
So the Defense Production Act protects them from
Well, we
liability?
use it. That's what we did. We used it, and it helps them greatly to do what they have to do, because they're ready to do it.
I like the adverb, but
they needed some help.
It's still questionable as how the DPA protects the meat
Well, we're doing
companies
that. We're going to have a
from
report on
liability.
that probably this afternoon. We're going to have a good form of protection, and through quarantine, when we find somebody that's not, they're going to be very careful. They are, as to who's going into the plant, and the quarantine is going to be very strong. And we're going to make people better
Some of the
when they
plants
have
aren't
a
even
problem.
testing.
We're going to get them better. Hopefully, they're going to get better. You know, we have a very
We're
good
gonna
record
make them
of
better.
having people getting better. A lot of people don't talk about that, John Bell, where people go in statistically, but
John
you
Bell?
don't read about the tremendous success we've had. We've had
Is John
we're
Bell
just
his
about
first and
number
middle
one in
name?
the
I don't
world
even know.
in terms of success. Germany's doing well. We're doing well. A couple of countries are doing okay, but we're doing very well. So the statistics are very good on that. So we're gonna get them better. Yes, Steve?
1 million cases.
Dr. Fauci, when might we see remdesivir on the market? How soon might we see that?
Well, right now, it's happening that the FDA, literally as we speak, is working with Gilead to figure out mechanisms to make this easily available to those who need it. With regard to getting to the market, will obviously have to be approved by the FDA for licensure, and the FDA is very well aware that this is something that is very important, so I'm sure they're going to be moving very expeditiously. But I can't give you a date. Right.
Tony, would this be used in the earlier phases or in the late phases?
Again, thank you for that question, because there are a lot of different permutations. This is in hospitalized patients, and the endpoint was the time to discharge. So it's unclear yet right now from this study whether or not it would be better for early. We don't know. It could be. But we only make statements about what we've proven. And the only thing that's been proven now is in hospitalized patients. So good question, but we don't have the answer. Thank you.
Mr. President, fiscally speaking, GDP shrinks 4.8%. Curious your reaction on that, and what, if anything, you want to see out of another possible stimulus package?
Trump doesn't actually own stock.
If you look at what's going on in the market,
never
where the
been a
market's at
stock trader
24,000.
that we know
And
of.
this came from us blind. We never knew. We had the greatest economy ever in the world, in the history of the world.
Not
we
true.
had the best economy.
Our GDP
I
was
say it
2.1.
openly,
We had
nobody
a
even
$1 trillion
challenges
deficit.
it.
So this whole
And they would
greatest
if they
ever
thought it was wrong.
nonsense.
We had the best economy ever.
No.
And we're going to have it again. What happened is, look at the market today, 24,000, above 24,000, I think, Kevin. In fact, I'll ask you to say a couple of things about that.
I'd be happy to. It was at 27,000. Oh, another Kevin.
The
Okay.
worst pandemic since 1917, over 100 years ago. With the
1917, someone said we have to drink. I don't even have a drink.
184 countries at least, because that was as of
185
last week.
gets that wrong every
And
time.
that a
It's
market would be,
185
we're at
countries.
29,000, and now we're going to be at 24,000.
Punch him.
And we were at a low. I think we're having one of the best weeks. We're having one of the best periods in terms of stock market, which to me is jobs and future. I don't view it as a stock. I view it as jobs and future. If you would have said to me that we'd be at 24,000, and we, you know, we started off at when I was elected, the number was much lower.
On February 24th, he said it's time to buy, when the stock market was 27.9.
But if you would have
It's now
said
at
we would
24.
have been at 24,000 with what we've gone through as a country, John Bell, it's pretty amazing. And I think I read where this is one of the best weeks.
John Bell's a
in the
Democrat.
stock
Why is he
market
sitting
this
there
last
not
short period of
correcting
time.
Trump?
that we've
Come on.
had in since the 1950s or 1940s. So,
1990s.
I think there's a tremendous feeling of optimism in this country. I can only say that there's going to be a tremendous feeling of optimism. I think the third quarter is transitional. We're transiting into, but it's a very transitional period. I think it's going to do good, but I think the fourth quarter is going to be fantastic. I think next year, all
when I'm
of
not
the fruits
president.
of what we've all done together between the doctors and the business people and yourself, thank you very much. Of course, you're a doctor. But all of the work from the task force, all of the people that have worked so hard, we're going to have a tremendous year next year.
The 80,000 Americans who sacrificed their
You're going to start to
lives.
see that, I think, in the fourth quarter, maybe even in pieces of the third quarter. But
Pieces
that's,
of the
again,
third
very
quarter.
transitional.
Mr. President, spending, though, is there a day?
The President of the United States in
Fox
the
cut
Oval
him
Office
off?
there alongside a Democratic governor from
Hold on.
Louisiana, John.
See what we can do here. Let's see if, and that might have been the end of it too. Oh, all right, hold on. We actually might be, Fox might go back to it here. Let me see. You're watching, no, Fox is not finishing the broadcast. Hold on. Let's see if he said anything else. Bear with me. Literally. Watch latest. Let's see where this brings us.
And Senator Cassidy and I last night were talking about testing and what we can do.
Okay, so
going
this is
forward
John
with
Bell
blueprint.
Edwards. Are they still going on? Hold on. We'll watch from the
I'd be
beginning
happy to share it with them.
and take a guess.
We would have been at 24,000 with what we've gone
Close.
through. As
I'm
testing.
really
I think
good
next
at this.
year,
Is this a job?
all of the fruits of what we've all done together between the doctors and
Wow, let's bring it up 30 seconds.
and help them. So we could have been flat for a long time as a country, or we could grow. I think you're going to see tremendous growth. It's a stimulus, and it's
All right.
it's a great stimulus.
Here we are.
Now they want more stimulus. And
Can
they're
I get
pushing
paid
for
to do this?
things,
Yes.
that,
Yes, I can.
don't
Go to
know if we should
kevinleefather.com.
be
Become a patron.
working with
As
states
you can
that
see from
have
the
been
crawl,
suffering
thanks to
for
Rodney and
bad
Debbie
leadership
for
or
becoming
bad management for
resistors
25
at the
years, and
$10
now we're
level
supposed to
in the
fix
last
that.
couple of days. So
So
thank
we're
you,
gonna have to talk
Rodney's a
about that.
very good friend of mine.
Maybe they should have brought
He's a
that up
wonderful
sooner.
guy. Anyway, back to Trump. And Debbie, I don't know who Debbie is, but I
think
love
I don't know him. I've never spoken
fact
to him.
that
I
she's
think
a
he's
resistor.
a very, very good man who had a very bad day.
Rodney is a very, very good
And
man.
then
I
he
assume
wanted
he's
to be
talking about
Ernest
Rodney.
Hemingway. You know, he starts writing long memos. You can't
Oh, the
do that when
captain.
you're a captain of a ship, especially that ship. That's the ultimate nuclear aircraft carrier, the best in the world.
Theodore
5,000
Roosevelt.
crew members, and he decides to become Ernest Hemingway. You can't do that. You can't do that. With that being said, I said
He
just
wrote
had-
an
he had a bad
email,
day.
a 5-page
We all
email.
have bad days.
Ernest Hemingway.
Ask for your advice on how to proceed.
Well, I don't want to comment, but I have my feelings on it, and I just think he's a very good man who had a bad. And I think the acting.
I don't wanna
secretary's a
comment, but
very
I'm
good
gonna
man
comment.
also. And he had a bad day. They both had bad days. You
He had
wanna
a
know
bad
the-
day
they
when
both
the
had
sailors
bad
were all
days.
testing positive.
And that can happen.
That is
they
a
were under
bummer.
a lot of pressure because it went very public, and so they'll be seeing me at a certain point. But I think he's a very good man. I think they're both very good men.
Very
But you know,
public.
when you talk about spreading, so it started with 2 people, then it went to 12 people, then it went to, I got a report yesterday, it was 851 people. Now they
That
have
number's
5,000
wrong.
people.
I'm
So
sure
it
it is.
starts with a
I'm not
little
even going to
group.
check it.
And then a few weeks later, how long is that? 4 weeks.
It's almost like it's
800 and
contagious
some odd
somehow.
people. And they're sailors, they're young. There is one death, as you know. There's one death. There's about 10 people in the hospital right now, but we expect all to get better. But there is one death out of it.
Is he
But,
going to get better? Is the
it's
dead guy
good
going to get
like
better?
wildfire, right? Think of that. You know, it was 2 and 12, and then we thought it ended at 41.
Exponential
You didn't
growth?
think so.
Nobody
I don't
knew.
think you thought so, right?
Just the right environment for spread like that.
It was a tough environment.
Mr. President, on testing, yesterday you
tough.
said that we will very soon be testing 5 million people.
Well, I don't know where
Doing
it
5
came up.
million.
Yeah.
You said that.
I'd like to refer to these 2 people because I don't know where it came up. Everyone kept saying, you said there'd be 5. That was a study that came out. Somebody came out with a study of 5 million people. Do I think we will? I think we will, but I never said it. We're
You
testing
just
millions of
did.
people. We're testing more people.
You just
than
said it again.
Any country in the world by far, by double, by much more than double, more than everybody else combined. We're testing. But somebody started throwing
Except
around
per capita.
5 million. I didn't say 5 million. Somebody said 5 million. I think it might have been the Harvard report. There was a report from Harvard, and they
That's
said 5
accurate.
million. Well,
5
we will be
to
there,
20.
but I didn't say it. I mean, I didn't say it, but somebody came out with a report
He did.
saying
Someone
5 million.
said,
It
"Hey,
sounds like a
do you
lot."
think 5 million? And he
Yesterday, I
said,
looked
"Yeah."
at Deborah. I said, "What's with the 5 million?" I think that was from the Harvard report. But we are going to be there at a certain point. We'll be there, but we're more advanced than any country in the world.
So
on
he
testing.
just
And
said
not
it
only
again.
that, the testing is the best test. Not only the most,
But the
we've
best,
not
the
only
most
done
beautiful
Even when you
test.
look at so many people, they love the Abbott Laboratories test.
Oh, they do. They
You
love
might
it.
have had it. Did you have it today?
Yes, sir, I
Good.
did.
Geez,
They
okay.
love it.
You got a test out of this deal.
I did.
But everybody comes in and they give them the test. In 5 minutes, they know they're okay or they're not okay. So far, we haven't found anyone not okay. But
So we know it
it's
works.
a great test. But that was not even, nobody even thought of that 2 months ago or 3 months ago. You know, that was developed over a very short period of time. Brilliantly developed by Abbott.
That machine has been out for
No,
years.
we'll be at whatever number it is, but we're so far advanced over any, and you know, it'd be really good if the press would give credit for it to the people that have done such a good job, because they're always saying, well, you know,
Yeah.
you're doing millions.
Why doesn't
but
someone
what about
thank
5
the
million?
medical
I'm saying, where did that
responders?
number, I keep
It's about
asking,
time.
where does it come from? I really learned this morning, I think it was probably the Harvard said, that'd be nice.
In the Harvard
And
study.
sure, it'll be
That's
nice.
what the
and
study
we'll be
said.
there, but,
The title of the
but
study
again,
was,
we didn't say it.
"That'd be
Who
nice."
said it is a report. We have other reports talking about a much lower number. But we're doing better than anybody in the world by far. The people that have worked on it have been incredible. And, you know, John Bell is testament to it. Testing is one of the great reasons that you've been successful in Louisiana.
Yes, sir, and with a lot of help from our federal partners. And the best news that we got as a state, quite frankly, and all states got it, was on Monday when Admiral Giroir said that our plans had all been received last Wednesday, and they were going to be able to resource the testing kits. So I don't know about 5 million for the country, but Louisiana's
Everyone's
gonna do
talking about
upwards of
Abbott
100,000 per month.
and
And I think if you extrapolate that
the
out,
Costello test also is another study
but I don't know
test
what time
thing.
period you're talking about.
And the
Admiral
WHO
Giroir said to Time Magazine that
and
5 million
WTO.
tests per day is simply
and
not
who's
possible.
on first?
Do you agree with that?
So what we have talked about and what was in the blueprint and talking with states, and you can see, I mean, this is
New Zealand's done
Louisiana's
very well.
curve. They got to this curve.
Oh, she's holding up a piece of paper so that we
mitigation
can all
and
see.
Containment across the state with about 26,000 tests per million.
There's my
or
evidence right
about,
there. Very clear.
26
I don't know why anyone is
26,000
questioning
tests
this.
per million. So, million of their population. So these tests, and I've been very clear about it, these are RNA tests, which means you take the virus out of your nose, you've got to crack the virus open, extract out the RNA, amplify the RNA, and then get an answer. And you can see that's
true.
happening inside of machines. Sometimes lab directors and lab technicians have to physically mix all of those reagents. That's when you hear about extraction reagents and why they're needed. And so what we had in the blueprint is really a call to action to really work on developing antigen tests like we use for flu. Because when you're using an antigen test in a doctor's office, then you can get to potentially that number.
Right
I'm
now,
not
Trump is
sure
thinking,
we need that
antigen?
number. I don't want to
Why are we
validate
against
that
Jen
number, but I'm
Aniston?
saying
Did she
is
say
with
something
this
negative
current
about me?
test and the complication of how it has to be run, that's not physically possible. And I think that's what Admiral Giroir was speaking to. But as we talked about ID Now, we continue to develop more testing and different platforms. But I think we do need that kind of new breakthrough to a new technique, a new measurement to get to the kind of numbers that Harvard's talking about. But I think we've made it clear all along that states have controlled and mitigated with the current number. And as you heard from the governor, he didn't shut everything down. There was still, he has a curve like this with still a significant number of Louisianans working. So I think what every governor is working on is how do I get the most people I can back to work and still maintain high level of safety. And I think what's the roadmap and the criteria and the testing come together.
Dr.
to
Scarf
create
has
that.
explained a couple
This
of
will not
times,
be a
RNA
testing
is
alone
like our
piece.
DNA.
And as
Not
you just
that
heard about the Roosevelt,
mega
and I
fans
bring
know
this
what
up every
DNA is,
time,
but
this asymptomatic spread will be important. And we just heard about 800 cases. 10 or less than 10 in the hospital, or 10 to 15 in the hospital. 800, 10 or 15 in the hospital. If you're only diagnosing symptomatic cases, you may be missing a large part of the spread. And I think that's why strategically
so let's open up
testing in a new way, a monitoring way to proactively find asymptomatic individuals.
Fauci's just sad.
Particularly when they
Look at
surround
him.
our most vulnerable
I feel bad
groups,
for the
whether
guy.
it's Native Americans, our long-term care facilities.
So tired.
We want governors to simultaneously work on finding
He's
the
done
cases
27
as they did so
television appearances in the
superbly,
last 8
and
minutes.
then work on a proactive measure
Don't touch your
to find
face.
the asymptomatic cases. And I think those two pieces have to come together. And I think that's
Look
what's
at him
in the
just staring
blueprint.
into the
That's why
void.
We're having the calls with the states with.
He's
and
looking at the
really
airplane.
See how do
Oh,
we effectively
there.
use
See the airplane?
our current testing capacity to ensure we're
God, I wish I could just
monitoring
fly out
and
of here.
diagnosing.
And you know what's interesting about that number is that I remember when we did 1 million, we said, we just did 1 million. And
We
the
have 1
media said,
million.
oh, when are you going to do 2 million? I said, soon, pretty soon. Then we do 2 million. And then they said, when are you going to do 5 million? In other words, it's sort of a setup.
Because we have 330 million
And by the way,
people.
when we hit 5 million, when are we going to hit 10 million? It's a little bit of a trap. You know, it's called the media trap.
This is
It
5
pertains
to
me,
10
it
million.
doesn't pertain
That's
to other
the
people,
sign
but it's what
language.
I've had to experience for 5 years.
By the way, why do all the governors have interpreters,
Well,
but
I don't know.
he
I
doesn't?
heard the 5 million is totally unnecessary. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to hit it pretty easily, but again, I think it's a media trap. I think the number, you know, I've just, all I know is this. President Moon of South Korea, because we've heard a lot of good things about South Korea, have good relationship. He called me to congratulate me on the
It's
testing.
all about relationships.
He said, your testing is the greatest in the world. How did this happen? I kept hearing about South
He did
Korea,
not.
South Korea.
Moon did not say that.
And he said, I want to just tell you that what you've done with testing is incredible. Okay? So,
Like that you ignored it for 2 months. And what is happening? Are we up on real time? Hold on. Coming back. Maybe. Okay. We're going to pause there. Boop, boop, boop. We're going to refresh and see what we can hit. Okay, so I think it's over
I'd be
now.
happy to share it with them.
But
And not
we
too
might be able to
distant
find
future.
where we were.
If I could, I'd just like to have John Bell finish up by talking more than anybody in the world, and we have the best tests in the world. And that's been all developed over the last couple of months because we started off with nothing. President Moon of
Here we
South
go.
Korea, because we've heard a lot of good things about
Again,
South
why
Korea.
am I not
Good
getting paid for
relationship.
this?
He called me to congratulate me on the
KevinLeeFather.com.
testing. He said, your testing is the greatest in the world. How did this happen? I kept hearing about South Korea, South Korea. And he
Yeah,
said, I want
because
to just tell you
South
that
Korea
what
has
you've
been
done
freaking
with testing
amazing
is
with this.
incredible. Okay? So our people should be congratulated. And what they'll do is, no matter what, if we test, as they say, 325 million people, they're going to say, when are you going to test them twice? Okay? So, you know,
Many
it's
of
a
those
trap.
5 million
It's
tests
really a
have
media
been
trap,
twice.
But that's okay. Look.
Speaking
we
of
are
which, I've
better
got an
than
update.
anybody in
Oh,
the
you know what?
world
I
on
can actually
testing.
pause this.
We have
This is
tested
important.
more
Let me give
than
you a second
anybody in the
here.
world, and we have the best tests in the world. And that's been all developed over the.
So a good friend of mine, Sean, a boyfriend of another very good friend of mine, he tested positive for the coronavirus. And it was at least a week before he knew that he should get tested because his roommate had it and didn't tell him. Another story. However, I just got word from my friend that Sean has tested positive again. This is 21 days later. So 2 positive tests 21 days apart. So this whole 14 days of quarantine is nonsense. If you're still shedding, or if you still have the virus in enough capacity in your system to test positive 21 days apart, that seems to me like it's slightly more than 14 days. No way to do the math on that.
The last couple of months, because we started off with nothing. We had nothing. We had absolutely nothing.
Did we have broken tests?
And that included ventilators, and that included, I always say the cupboards were bare. They were bare in the military, and they were bare medically in terms of pandemics.
Yeah,
or
we were out of
epidemics,
ammunition.
or whatever you want to call it.
What did you want to call it?
An incredible job. They
Hold
were
on,
bare
let's go back.
in the
Sorry.
military, and they were bare medically in terms of pandemics or epidemics or whatever you want to call it. So
Pandemics.
our people have done an incredible job. Yeah.
Mr. President, concerning WHO, do you think that China is playing a better game in terms of soft power?
Say it again.
Do you think that China is playing a better game in terms of influence, soft power in the WHO?
Well, they've been doing it for years, and they play the game, and I guess we've had people over the years that never really focused on that game. You know, who would think you'd have to play the game? And it's, to a large extent, public relations, or whatever.
Propaganda.
But China's not to be congratulated for what happened, just so you understand it.
Really?
They're not to be
'Cause you
congratulated
did.
for what took place.
Hold on.
And WHO is essentially congratulating them. And when
It's going to. This is
they
C-SPAN,
start
so it
doing
pauses
that,
on the replay.
we've got problems. And again, the United States pays almost 500 million, and they pay 38 million a year. 500 million versus 38 million a year. So there are lots of different people that we can give this to. You know, we can give this money to lots of different incredible groups. There are a lot of groups out there. Doesn't have to go to the WHO. We can give it to groups that are very worthy and get much more bang for your buck. But we're going to make a decision in the
other
future.
World Health Organizations.
If I could, I'd just like to have John Bell finish up by talking about the great success in Louisiana. And you worked with our two great senators, and they were
Absolutely.
really, John and Bill, and they were really calling me a lot and saying, we got to take care of Louisiana. So you had a great relationship with them.
We did. I know Senator Kennedy worked on the ventilator issue, and Senator Cassidy and I last night were talking about testing and what we can do going forward with the blueprint, because he and Dr. Redfield had discussed that. But we've obviously turned the
That's C-SPAN pausing.
corner in Louisiana. We're in a much, much better place than we thought was even possible 5 or 6 weeks ago. I will tell you.
We're just going to have to put up with
because
that.
of our local partners and our federal partners and hard work. We've had a lot of lessons to learn because there's no blueprint for this. There's a blueprint for testing now, but there's no blueprint for a governor. How do you respond to a pandemic? So we've had a steep learning curve, but I will tell you we're in a much better place. The field medical stations that you provided, the Navy medical personnel that you sent to Louisiana, the testing that we had early was the key, and that has informed our testing strategy.
It's coming.
Going forward, and we're excited about the opportunity to have the test kits that we need allocated starting in the month of May to get to the 200,000. We'll do 43 persons per 1,000. That's what we're going to get to in Louisiana, and we're going to be in much better shape after that, Mr. President. We look forward to getting past this, returning to a newer sense of normalcy, which I don't think will come officially and fully until we get the vaccine. But we're looking forward to moving. We're looking forward to moving ahead, and just appreciate your work and your contributions to our efforts. It's been very helpful.
Well, it's an honor working with you.
Thank
And
you,
the
sir.
people of Louisiana, great people. They've really gone through a lot.
Well, I'll just say they're the best.
I'll tell you what, they're right there. I agree. They're great people.
Do you feel like you have enough test kits and supplies to run as many tests as you think you need?
Well, what I believe is that with the commitments that were made this past Monday by Admiral Giroir, that having looked at all 50 state plans for testing going forward, that they've committed to resourcing Louisiana's request for 200,000 test kits per month. That gets us to 43 out of every 1,000 tested every month. We believe that that's sufficient for us to move forward as we are able to start reopening the economy. We know the lab capacity.
Going to pause this for a second. So Trump was talking about nobody should congratulate China. This is his tweet on January 24th. I hope you guys can see that. It looks like you can. China has been working very hard to contain the coronavirus. The United States greatly appreciates their efforts and transparency. It will all work out well. In particular, on behalf of the American people, I want to thank President Xi. What a great relationship. Okay, back to it. Here's John Bell.
Capacity is there. We have Dr. BU here with me. He's done a phenomenal job. He's responsible in large measure for that curve coming down. And so we feel pretty good at that level. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to be able to come up here today at the
Pence knows how to sit, Martha. Just ask any of the guys in Indiana.
I'm only speaking for myself, but having been part of all the calls with the governors, This is the big piece that we've been looking for, and with that commitment, we really feel much better about going forward.
That's great. Great.
This is just pausing. C-SPAN does this when you watch it, so patience.
We know the importance of testing. We can't treat what we don't find. And early on, we knew that we had a problem, and we knew that we needed to surge our testing. And so we were grateful to have that support, especially in the epicenter in New Orleans, in the parishes right around there.
This
so
whole thing is like letting another basketball team score 800 points in the first 3 quarters and then congratulating yourself on getting 30 in the fourth.
All of that is coming. Everything went, and now it's coming, and you'll be in a position. I think you said 43. That's a big number. That's a great number. If you could do that.
I just love watching
that'd be a fantastic
Fauci.
Number. One thing I think I'd like to just finish by saying, so we reached a million.
I don't know who that
cases,
is.
And
Marfa?
That's a tremendous.
I wasn't
amount.
paying attention.
And the reason is because of testing, because other countries don't test. So if you don't test, you're not going to find cases. The reason we
What
have
about
a million,
the deaths?
Take a look at number 2.
Are the other
is,
countries not having deaths?
A fraction of that.
We have,
Because
I
they
did the
don't
math
test.
this morning, we
They-
have
they don't have the
27% of
ability
the
to do
world's
what we're
death.
doing.
4.4% of the population.
It's a number that in one way
But the reason? The
sounds
beautiful
bad,
tests.
but in another way is really actually an indication that our testing is so superior. I
No,
mean, to think
it's not.
That we have more people, more cases than China. Does anybody really believe that? But the testing is different. And I think also the transparency is much different. Transparency is like from day and night. We are totally transparent, whatever it is, it is. But because of our great testing and because of what we've done and the amount we've done, we are able to point out far more cases than anybody else has. If other countries did the kind of testing that we had, now we're a much bigger country than most also in terms of people, but if other countries did this kind of testing, you'd see numbers that
Hold on. Trying to fix this.
would be much
See if
different.
this works.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Well, I think we're done, but I wanted to show you guys
Mr. President,
the
how essential is it
testing
to
per
these states
capita.
wait 14 days?
That must be the guy with the pool feed mic. There it is. Okay, so that was that. Here again, this is the updated testing per capita for the countries around the world. And we're looking at 2578 being the lowest in terms of per 100,000. That's Ireland. United States is currently sitting at about 1,700 per 100,000. So we are well behind the curve. But Trump uses this as an excuse for why we have 1 million cases. And again, we have 27% of the world's deaths related to coronavirus, I should clarify in case somebody's watching and it's like, oh, there's other people dying in other countries. Yeah, 4.4% of the population, 27% of the world's death. All right, I'm going to hang on for another few minutes here. So this press conference happened probably about an hour ago now. And I was a little bit slow on the uptake because it's a pool feed and then it went to CNN and then. But I got to say, I have to congratulate myself. I'm so good at figuring out how many minutes into something and catching it pretty close. If nothing else, my children will remember me for that, hopefully, at the funeral. Let's see here. Can anybody explain why social distancing doesn't apply to this group? That's an excellent question. They've all been tested, though. They get tested almost on a daily basis with the Abbott-Costello case. So I can explain that. Yeah, the curve is a difficult thing for most people to understand because they think it goes up and then down and then we're all good. What's happening is we're trying to flatten the curve, and that just means the same number of cases and deaths. That doesn't really mean we need to bring the cases, the new cases, down per day, and none of the states that are opening up have done that yet. Okay, yeah, God, if we went to testing as the drinking word, I would be dead. I'd be calling 911, and I'd probably misdial 10 minutes into the conference. No, Trump uses per capita when it benefits him. And then only because somebody's written it down and he's reading it, and he doesn't even realize what he's saying. Because when he hears per capita, he just thinks everyone. However, Yahoo News was incorrect on a per capita test question yesterday. They said South Korea. And in fact, the U.S. has overtaken South Korea with the per capita testing. And here's why. South Korea tested early and often, and they were able to isolate and contain those with the virus. Consequently, they're sitting at an infinitesimal amount of deaths compared to us and cases. So they're just over 2,000 deaths. We're coming. Did we hit 60,000 yet? Anybody? I haven't even checked today. So we can check. Let's check, shall we? Bring that up. And give me a second here, folks. We are going to test the number, the Johns Hopkins number right now in terms of deaths for the United States. Number one. Oh, Johns. Okay, they split everything up. Give me a second. They split it up by district, so New York will have X number of deaths, etc. Yeah, we hit 60,000 according to Worldmeter. 60,495 deaths. And South Korea getting the virus on the same day and doing massive testing to begin with. Oh, wow. So the United States, 60,000 plus deaths. South Korea, as of today, 246 deaths. That's the difference that testing and containment makes if you do it properly when things first break out. And the United States has had more warnings than anyone. We knew. And it was in the presidential daily briefings, the PDB. But Trump is far more interested in PBJ than he is in presidential daily briefings. Okay. That's about it for today. Hey, thanks again to my friend Rodney Thornley and also to Debbie L. I think I might know who Debbie is. I'm not sure because I don't know Debbie's last name. There's a lot of Debbies out there in my world. So thank you so much, both of you, for becoming resistors and donating on kevinleefather.com, which links you right to Patreon. Some of you are familiar with Patreon, some of you aren't. Just so you know, if you go to Patreon, if you go to kevinleefather.com, you can go to Patreon and you can help pay for the things that I'm doing. I applied for unemployment yesterday and broke the system, so I don't know if I'm going to be getting anything or not. I just fall into all the cracks. That's what she said. So if you appreciate that kind of entertainment, go to kevinleefather.com and donate. Well done. Very prepared. Thank you, Marfa. You're always great. Thank you, Real News. Nice to see you. Thanks, Bev. Thanks, Kathleen. Everybody else who's in the chat window here. Let's see if I can scroll up on the chat window. I can't. So everybody else that was in here today, Roger, Ted, Sarah. I'm just making up names. Larry, cousin Larry. I didn't see you in here. Larry, are you my cousin or are you my uncle somehow? I don't even know. Anyway, folks, it's been great. I got to go feed a cat. Be good. We'll see if there's a press conference later today. I don't know if there will be one. I got to go pick up some groceries. Yeah, I got to head out. Thanks, everyone.